I got it on a very minimal setting because I have to charge. I can get more. I want to. You want to turn it off? I'm watching it. I'm testing. I never really ran into the room. It's basically at that now. Like 500 lumens. It goes up to 8,000.
Yeah, I'm just gonna stay here. down into the bottom of the dam. But no one's really allowed. And we're just sitting there for about 2 hours. And then Mason finally comes down the tunnel. We see him come by, and he just drives right past us for that takes another hour and a half. We're just waiting out. When he finally comes up to the shore, he does his little push out. Still more than like 15 minutes. I was there for. Here's the thing. I used to work on like she did something similar. She had us go out on a diet plan. We were all there interviewing her, waiting for her, kind of like all this stuff. Two ends. The first time we interviewed. I'm from the company. No one's in the company. No one's talking about it. She's the only one who made it sound good. This is the governor. No, the governor of Iowa. She said we're not going to after. Oh, but it's something else. Because it's the governor of Iowa. She was like big. Yeah, she's like really big. She's a yeah. I mean, also she's like governor of the. But Nebraska. Yeah. No reason to care. Exactly. So you know who Governor Bishop is for Pennsylvania? Yeah. Did you hear? That's what it is. Oh, that's standard. It's probably all I just be careful.
Yep, I'll go this way. Not yet.
So, folks, first off, I want to say just sorry for the delay. The delay is as a result of this is an active and ongoing investigation. We're working diligently to provide all of you with as much information as we possibly can under the circumstances and verify that information. So we had to spend a little extra time putting that information together. As a result of that, we're behind schedule. I'm sure that people appreciate how difficult this is and the fact that us taking a little extra time under the circumstances is probably worthwhile. Okay? I'm going to let my staff member set up the PowerPoint presentation or the visuals that we have, and then we'll come back in and we'll go from there. Okay? I'm going to need you to move over there. We're going to start our Facebook Live here. We're starting now. It takes a minute to if the rest of you need to start or you're not ready, this is the time to get ready. Okay? Sam, you ready?
Yes. Okay. You watched it earlier?
No.
I've been live for about an hour.
Oh, have you? No, I have not been watching. We've been doing other stuff.
Good. Yes. I hope so.
Exactly right. Are we up and running? Yes, we are? Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Okay, now that we are up and running on our Facebook feed, we're going to start our press conference. My name is Kory, and I'm the Sheriff of Butte County. I'm going to reiterate my apologies for the delayed start of our press conference. The purpose or the reason for that delayed start is that this is an active, ongoing investigation. We are working diligently to gather as much information as we possibly can so that we can provide it to you and the members of our community. With that, though, requires us to sometimes check and recheck things. Our hope is to provide you with the best possible and most accurate information that we have available. That said, as I always say on any of my press conferences, the information that we're giving you today, again, is a product of our absolute best effort to date. Recognize that investigations are dynamic, they're complex, and it is possible that we will find additional information that changes the context of the information we're providing you today, or we might find additional information that results in us believing the information we provided today wasn't completely accurate. That is not intentional. That's just the nature of the way these things go. We're here this afternoon to provide all of you with an update on the Feather River School of a Seventh-day Adventist shooting, which occurred yesterday afternoon. Today, you're going to hear from me, of course. Then our commissioner from CHP, Sean Dury, Special Agent in Charge, Sid Patel, Butte County District Attorney Mike Ramsey, and Lori Trujillo, the Director of Communications and Development for Northern California Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. And I apologize that the PowerPoint isn't displaying exactly the way it should be, but we'll get through this. I'm going to start by providing you with a review of the events of yesterday. Then we're going to talk about the victims in this case. Then we're going to talk about the suspect in this case and provide you some information about who he was, and perhaps some insight into his motivation for perpetrating this horrific act. So, to recap yesterday's events, at 1:08 p.m., an initial call, 911 call that is, was made, and it was received by the California Highway Patrol. The caller was from the school, reporting that there was an active shooter on campus. The CHP dispatched one of their officers and simultaneously transferred that call over to the Butte County Sheriff's Office because we're the law enforcement agency with primary jurisdiction there. And I'll have the commissioner come up after I'm done talking, and he can provide some additional clarification about CHP's response. As I said, the call came in at 1:08. At 1:09 p.m., BCSO Dispatch Center received the call from CHP. They immediately dispatched every available deputy sheriff in Butte County, including deputies from North County. In addition to that, as is the protocol and the practice, law enforcement here in Butte County, consistent with our training, when there is an active shooter incident, it is an all response situation, and we received responses and support from other allied law enforcement agencies, including local police departments, as well as state agencies, such as Fish and Wildlife, the Cal Fire law enforcement officers, and of course, California Highway Patrol. At 1:10 p.m., 2 minutes after the original call, the first CHP officer arrives on scene. He is directed to the area where the suspect is located down on the ground from what appeared to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound. That officer immediately secured the firearm, which was laying next to the individual. At 1:14 p.m., Butte County Sheriff's deputies arrived on scene. And at that point, deputies and CHP officers immediately began rendering aid to 2 students who sustained gunshot wounds. In addition to that, the officers began to search the remainder of the campus to make sure that there were no other attackers or assailants, and make plans to keep the kids and the faculty members safe. Once they determined that there were no additional suspects, all of the students were eventually gathered and moved to the school's gymnasium, where they were protected until we were able to move them from that campus. At 1:30 p.m., school bus was dispatched to the school. The 35 or so students who were in attendance at the school that day were loaded on the school bus, and they were taken to the Church of the Nazarene, which is what we set up as our family reunification site. This is just a representation of all of the law enforcement agencies that have brought resources to bear to help out with this particular thing. It's probably not an all-inclusive list, but I did want to make note of the fact that we are receiving tremendous support from federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies. When the bus arrived at the Nazarene Church, we had BCSO personnel present, along with crisis counselors from our behavioral health department, along with chaplains from our law enforcement program. And they immediately began a process of reunifying the students with their parents. And I am told that that reunification process went very smoothly. It went as well as it could go, given the horrific and tragic circumstances that we were dealing with. And I want to specifically comment and thank the all of the first responders, the crisis folks who were there to support the students and the family. But I also want to acknowledge the parents and the family members who, when they arrived, recognized that the best thing to do under those circumstances was to work with us so that we could have an orderly reunification. And I appreciate their efforts in that regard. Today, I am going to provide you with information about the 2 boys who sustained gunshot wounds during this incident. The first young man, Roman Mendez. Roman is 6 years old, and he is in kindergarten at the school. Roman sustained 2 gunshot wounds resulting in internal injuries. The other child that was seriously injured during the course of this, thank you very much. And I'm going to work hard to pronounce this correctly because it's Elias. Elias, thank you very much. It's pronounced Elias Wolford. He is 5 years old. He is also in kindergarten. He was shot 1 time in the abdomen, which resulted in internal injuries. Our district attorney, Mike Ramsey, and I traveled down to the hospital where these young men are being treated. They were immediately transported to trauma center, and had an opportunity to sit down and speak with the parents of the 2 boys. Of course, we expressed our heartfelt sympathies under the circumstances. But one of the things that we learned from the physicians is that the boys are both in critical condition. They have a very long road ahead of them in terms of recovery. It's very likely that they are going to have a number of surgeries as going forward. But the fact that they are currently still with us, I think, is a miracle and something that we should all be very thankful for. I'd also like to ask everybody, members of the community as well as the media, to respect the privacy of the family members Both families talked about how they are focusing on the recovery of their children. That's the most important thing to them, and we can all understand that. But there have been attempts by members of the media to contact them. Please recognize that the most important thing for them now is to make sure that their children are being taken care of. And so I would ask on their behalf, based on what they told me, is that you respect their privacy and do not make an effort to contact the parents. In addition to that, I have received some information that Monday night at 5:30 p.m. at the Southside Community Center here in Oroville, there is going to be a fundraising event that is being organized by local churches and community leaders. And the fundraiser is to benefit both of these boys and help their families as they deal with the expenses that's definitely going to be incurred during the course of that. Now, I think it's very important that we always keep in the forefront of our mind that the people that truly matter during the course of this investigation are the victims. And I certainly don't want them to be lost in the overall story. With that said, I am prepared to provide you with some information today about the suspect in this case. So, we have identified the individual responsible for the shooting as a subject named Glenn Litton. He is 56 years old. He most recently, I think, is best described as being homeless, and he spends time between Sacramento and the Chico area. He has a lengthy criminal history and history of mental health issues. His first prison sentence was in 1991 for theft. Several other convictions for various crimes to include theft, fraud, forgery in the 90s and early 2000s. I am going to have our representative from the FBI, Special in Charge Patel, talk about his criminal history or his involvement in crime at the federal level. And I'm going to have our district attorney, Mike Ramsey, come up after I'm done and talk about his criminal cases here in Butte County, which were some 20 years ago. The Butte County Sheriff's Office has not had any contact with Litton since Litton was booked into the Butte County Jail for forgery and fraud charges in 2003. So it's been, again, over 20 years since he's been booked into the Butte County Jail. But he has been involved in other criminal matters in other parts of the state. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So our most recent law enforcement contacts. In March of 24, Litton was the suspect in a theft of approximately $1,166 in Phoenix, Arizona. He apparently had gotten a job with CVS, and on the second day of his employment, the manager reported that he stole the money from the cash register. On November 12th of 2024, Litton was listed as a suspect in a Chico PD case. It was reported to the Chico Police Department that Litton rented a white Chevrolet Silverado 1500 U-Haul, one of the U-Haul pickups, and did not return it when he was supposed to return it. So U-Haul reported it stolen. The Chico Police Department attempted to contact Litton, but they were unable to contact him. And a GPS tracker on the truck showed that the truck left the Chico area and headed towards San Francisco at the time, or shortly after, at the time that the vehicle was stolen. On November 12th, 2024, Litton was arrested by the South San Francisco Police Department for being in the stolen U-Haul pickup, or the U-Haul pickup that hadn't been returned as it should have been. And in addition to that, he was in possession of a forged license. So he was arrested on fresh charges of being in possession of the forged or false identification, as well as an outstanding warrant out of the San Bernardino County courts for burglary. He was booked into the San Mateo County Jail. During a search of Litton's person, when he was arrested, that forged driver's license was located. And interestingly enough, it had the name Michael Sanders on it and a photograph of Litton. And then it was at that point that Litton was transported to San Mateo County Jail. That's significant because later on, he utilizes that same name to make appointments to visit the schools, and I'll talk about that shortly. On 11/20, he was transported from the San Mateo County Jail to the San Bernardino County Jail and booked on the warrant for burglary. On 11/21/24, he had his first court appearance. He had pled not guilty and was released by the court on his own recognizance. He was then picked up by a family member and transported back to Sacramento. From Sacramento, my understanding is that he took a bus to the Chico area. And while in the Chico area, he stayed a couple of nights at various motels within the Chico area. The timeline for his movements on 12/4. So in the early morning hours, we've determined that he was in the vicinity of Motel 6 in Chico. At around 7:45 in the morning, he got onto a Beeline bus at 2nd and Salem in Chico. And at 8:30 hours, he arrived in Oroville and exited the bus at Montgomery and Meyer Street in Oroville. At that time, he was carrying a large duffel bag. At 10:46 hours, Litton was at the Rayleigh's in Oroville. He purchased an energy drink and checked out the store until about 10:56 hours. At 11:38 hours, he requested an Uber, and he used the alias Mark Hansen. At 11:57 hours, the Uber transported him, or arrived the Uber arrived at the bus stop on Spencer Avenue near Rayleigh's to pick him up. He had booked the ride to go out to the Feather River Seventh-day Adventist School located on Highway 70 in Cox. And the Uber driver dropped him off at that location at about 12:11 p.m. Now, I told you yesterday, and I'll reiterate today, that a couple of days prior to this, Litton had called the school and made an appointment to speak to an administrator about the possibility of him enrolling his grandson in the school. He booked that appointment utilizing the name Michael Sanders, which was the name on the fictitious driver's license that he had. The school set the appointment. When he showed up, he met with the school's principal. And as I said yesterday, it was a cordial conversation. The conversation centered around what it would take for him to enroll his grandson in the school. His story was that his daughter had recently moved to Gridley and that he wanted his grandson to go to that school, and he was willing to pay for the tuition. As it turns out, that was all a lie. His daughter had not moved to Gridley, and he did not have a grandson. So it appears to us that that story was a ruse to set up an appointment so that he could gain access to the campus. After the tour and after the meeting with the principal, he got up and it appeared that he was going to leave. He started to walk back towards the parking lot, and this is him right here. In the first photograph, you see him walking one direction. Almost instantly, he makes a turn and starts to turn and walk back through the breezeway that leads to the playground. And the children at the school were finishing up their noon break and were in the process of heading back to the classroom. Note that he has his hand inside his jacket near his waistband. We believe that is where he was concealing the firearm. After that, he pulls the firearm and initiates his attack. That's when the two boys that we have talked about earlier were shot. The school principal reported that she heard a loud noise, which we believe to be gunshots, and then the children screaming. She immediately came out, found the kids, and began rendering aid. We have looked, we've been working diligently to try to determine what the motives for this attack were. And yesterday I talked with you about the fact that we have received information that led us to believe that he targeted this school because of its affiliation with the Seventh-day Adventist Church. There's written information that we received that we believe that came from him, and the information that I think is most probative to why he chose this school is this statement right here. And it reads, countermeasures involving child executions has now been imposed at the Seventh-day Adventist School in California, United States, by the International Alliance. I, Lieutenant Glenn Litton of the Alliance, carried out countermeasures in necessitated response to America's attacks towards Yemen. Now, I will tell you that we have been working diligently to try to determine if there is, in fact, an international alliance, and if one of their stated purposes is to engage in terrorist acts of this nature. I can tell you at this particular point, and we've been working not only local law enforcement, but federal law enforcement, FBI, Homeland Security, to try to determine if there is, in fact, an international alliance. At this point, we have not been able to find any organization that calls themselves the International Alliance and that is active in this regard. And in terms of him saying that he's a lieutenant in this, there's nothing, we've found no information that would lead us to believe that this organization has some kind of military or paramilitary structure. I would go back to, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time speculating that, but recognize that this individual did have some significant mental health issues, and it appears that he pulled information from various sources, and it all came together in his mind to form a reality that perhaps is false or different than ours, of course. But that is we believe is the stated motivation for this. I will tell you that we are going to continue to probe this and work this. And if there is any indication whatsoever that there is, in fact, some kind of international alliance that poses a threat, that will be followed up, and we'll make that information known. Again, that is one of the reasons that we believe that this was an isolated incident, or he was a sole individual who targeted this school based on the beliefs that he held and how he came to believe those things, I can't say. Now, we've also determined that there was an alternative target. Next slide. It appears as though Mr. Litton also researched the Seventh-day Adventist school in Red Bluff, California, and he looked at information concerning both the Red Bluff location as well as the location out on Highway 70. But ultimately, it appears that he selected the location on Highway 70 as the target. I think it's also kind of important to note that we determined that Mr. Litton attended the Paradise Seventh-day Adventist School when he was a young man. So it had been many, many, many years. And he may have had a relative attend the school that he ultimately went to and committed the shooting, but that would have been many, many years ago. And so there is no current connection between Mr. Litton, there's no current connection that we can determine between Mr. Litton and the school that he went to perpetrate this horrible act of violence. It appears, again, that it's based on his notion about, the activities of the Seventh-day Adventist Church and why he selected that. So I now would like to bring up Commissioner Dury to talk about the CHP's involvement, what they're doing with it to work with us, followed by Special Agent in Charge Sid Patel, Butte County District Attorney Mike Ramsey, and Lori Trujillo from the Seventh-day Adventist. After that, I will come back up and we can field some questions if necessary. Commissioner?
Thanks, Sheriff. My name is Sean Dury. I'm the commissioner of the CHP. Let me start by saying thank you and commending the Butte County Sheriff's Office, especially Sheriff Honea, the leadership, as he's guiding us through this tragedy. The work that the Butte County Sheriff's Department and the FBI have done in the last 24 hours is impressive. And I say thank you as a member of the community, and we commend you for that. Today, Californians throughout the state are grieving alongside the community of Oroville and the people of Butte County as we try to make sense and work our way through this unimaginable tragedy. Our focus, our hearts, and our attention remains with Elias and Roman as these two young men fight for their lives. Yesterday, I want to acknowledge and just express how proud I am of the CHP responders and the other first responders. The sheriff mentioned that at 1:08, the initial call went into CHP dispatch. At 1:09 was the first time that our beat officers heard that call broadcasted on the radio. The officer that was first on scene was a CHP officer. He was about a mile and a half away on his beat, working traffic. He was shooting radar and working speed out on Highway 70. He responded and got there in about 90 seconds. Deployed in line with the training that he receives, that every CHP officer receives. And I would just point out every police officer in California receives that training. That training is to go towards the threat, go towards danger, and to stop the threat. And then they immediately transition to providing aid. And that's exactly what this officer did. He responded on scene. He found a gate that he was able to maneuver himself through. He located the suspect after he was pointed that direction from school personnel. He found the suspect, secured the weapon, made it safe, handcuffed the suspect, immediately went back to his patrol car, retrieved medical equipment, and I believe that the CHP officer and the sheriff's deputies that arrived on scene did everything they could to provide medical aid and likely saved those lives of those young men. So with that, I just want to say thank you to them. I know how first responders came together yesterday is a good example of how the community is going to come together and how we're going to get through this. So thank you. Sid?
Thank you. My name is Sid Patel. I'm the Special Agent in Charge for the Sacramento FBI Field Office. First of all, our hearts are broken. So we're with the families right now that have been affected by this horrible event. Our people are working day and night to cover leads, investigative efforts, to get you the answers and get us all the answers that we seek. So we thank you all for your patience. I'd like to thank our FBI evidence response team, our victim specialists, our analysts, our agents, everyone that's been working day and night, hand in hand with Butte County, and the great work everyone here and from our law enforcement agencies are doing. Fantastic partnerships here. We had federal cases on this individual back in 2015. We received information about his identity theft, and it was opened up in 2015. In August of 2015, the shooter pleaded guilty to aggravated identity theft, and that was for California victims. And then in April 2016, again pleaded guilty for aggravated identity theft for victims in Nevada. Who were these victims? Who were predominantly inmates that were housed in Nevada and California, where he was taking their identities and using them for fake passports. He got 2 years each, serving concurrently. One thing I would ask is for your help. As the name of the shooter is out now, his ideology, maybe you know him. If you do, what I would ask that you call 1-800-CALL-FBI or go to tips.fbi.gov and give us any information that you have about this incident or this individual. I thank you for your patience, and I thank our law enforcement partners for all the great work they've been doing. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Mike Ramsey, Butte County District Attorney, and we have known Mr. Litton, also known as Mr. Williams, for a number of decades. As the sheriff indicated, he was born in Chico. He has a rather extensive juvenile record. That juvenile record included a number of thefts and also traffic violations running from police. In additional time, he served some time in what was CYA in 1984 for harassing phone calls. As he aged out of the juvenile system, became an adult, he then had counts involving the cultivation of marijuana, and then more counts involving petty theft, and petty theft that eventually rose to the level of a felony by virtue of the fact that he had a petty theft with priors. He did serve time for that in California State Prison in 1991. And then in 1994, his parole was revoked. He went back and basically fell off the local radar until such time as in 2002 that he came to the attention of the Butte County Sheriff's Office and my office for a number of fraudulent credit card charges and charging up people's IDs. He basically stole the IDs of some 4 to 5 Butte County residents, used that to charge up thousands of dollars worth of goods, rent, food, entertainment. And of particular significance was at the time that the search warrant, at the time of his arrest in October of 2002, he was found in a local wig shop buying a disguise, buying a wig, a mustache. In his car outside, officers did a search after his arrest, found leg shackles, handcuffs, and walkie-talkies. The search warrant of his residence at that time showed, again, some issues of concern that basically found a bulletproof vest and parts for a taser. A search of his computer showed his curiosity or searching of a number of websites involved with the looking for guns, looking for explosives. Notes in the computer to himself were fairly significant in terms of planning of some sort of mass incident involving explosives. Nothing that was specific, no specific target, just kind of ruminations. As the sheriff's already indicated, back when he was 16, it was clear that he had some significant mental health problems. At the time, also in those websites, we found, and this is significant, when we go to 2015 for the federal charges, that he was looking at sites on how to fake passports. And the purpose of having the passports was to avoid law enforcement. He was convicted in Butte County Superior Court in 2003 of 12 counts, various counts of forgery, ID theft, and theft. So those counts garnered him 8 years and 4 months in the California State Prison. Until this time in which he popped up.
My name is Lori Trujillo. I am the Director of Communication and Development at the Northern California Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. Our Feather River Seventh-day Adventist School community, we are still shocked at what has happened and occurred. We are experiencing great pain within our school family, within our staff members, and throughout our entire community here in the Northern California Conference. We are absolutely devastated by this senseless act of violence. Our church members here in the Northern California Conference continue to pray for all of those who've been affected by this tragedy. And today, all Adventist schools in our conference were closed to enable families to be together. On behalf of the Northern California Conference leaders, to his team, to the California Highway Patrol, all of the first responders that are here, as well as these are consummate professionals. They absolutely, as you heard, 90 seconds, they quickly rushed in to help and protect our students and staff. We are additionally grateful to the FBI for all of the quick work and working so closely with law enforcement as they seek answers through this investigation. We know that the close-knit Feather River community will be grieving for a very long time, as will the rest of our conference. And to come, and I would like to ask that people of all faiths join us as we pray and strive to move forward. Thank you, all of you, for your support.
Thank you all very much for the information that you provided. So a couple of things. Information's developing, and as we get there, Mr. Ramsey just informed me that there is a candlelight prayer vigil scheduled for tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. At the Oroville Christmas Tree, which is in front of the Oroville Municipal Building in downtown Oroville, and that is off Montgomery?
The municipal auditorium,
Municipal.
also known as the Oroville Convention Center.
Got it. And that's being organized by the Nazarene Church, is that correct? So if you're interested in that, I think that's another event there. Perfect. So I want to close my comments, and then we'll open up to questions, and we'll talk about how we're going to do that in a moment. But with first off reiterating my thanks to all of the law enforcement agencies and first responders who rushed in without hesitation whatsoever to deal with this really tragic event. I also want to recognize the school staff and the principal who also, I think, did heroic things to protect the kids that were on campus that day. I want to again thank and recognize the parents of the students who were affected by this. Tell you again that our hearts go out to Elias and Roman. And I know that there is a tendency to focus media coverage and efforts on the suspect in these cases, but please, please, please do not lose sight of the most important people in this, and that's these kids who had to endure this. As the FBI noted, we are looking for any information that people might have about Litton and his activities. One of the things that I want to note is that he apparently was into bodybuilding and may have frequented gyms in our area or in other areas. If you have information about him, if you knew him, if you were aware of, again, any of his thought process or ideologies, please contact law enforcement, and you can contact the Butte County Sheriff's Office at 530-538-7322 if it's local and you have local information. But if you are in another part of the country, or for that matter, another part of the world, you can contact the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI or go to tips.fbi.gov. So I think the way we're going to handle this in terms of questions, similar to the way they did last night in an orderly fashion, I'm going to start, I'll start on this side of the room right here. And what I'll point to, if you have a question, let me know. And if the question is for me, I will answer it. But if the question is for one of the other speakers, then we can bring them up to do that. Do you have any questions? That's a no.
Was he from Paradise or Chico?
So he appears that he appears to, as I said earlier, he did go to the Paradise School, but that was many, many years ago. And it appears that he had left the area and was in a lot of other parts of the state and perhaps the country, because you saw that he was in Phoenix, Arizona shortly before. What we can best piece together right now is that, in essence, he was homeless of late and was moving back and forth between Sacramento and Chico and staying a night or two at various hotels. Okay.
So my name is Michael with Chico Enterprise. Thanks for the question. What are the plans to reopen the school? Are the kids going to return for the school year later, or will they be homeschooled or transferred to different areas?
Okay, so do you want to answer that?
Sure.
Okay, fantastic.
After this press conference, we as a leadership team will be getting together to make that decision. And once we have made that decision, we will be releasing an official press release. And at that point, we will be able to answer those questions.
And as I said earlier, the FBI and the District Attorney's Office both have robust victim services. I know they're well engaged in all of that. And then we stand ready to work with school leadership to provide whatever support necessary as they move forward. Thank you. Yes, sir.
So I know you guys in 2015 found those kind of suspicious items among his property, the manacles, things like that. Other than that, were there any other moments of violence or any other indications that this guy had violence like this in him?
So I will defer to Mr. Ramsey on that, but I think it was 2002.
2002.
2002.
Butte County case.
Yeah.
2015 was the federal cases.
And it was 2002 where those items were located in his car. If you'll notice, the majority of his criminal conduct involves identity theft and forgery, and there was the burglary, but we don't find any violent crimes listed on his rap.
Correct. I just have, there's a few, but I will ask the most pertinent
Thank you,
question
sir.
on my mind.
Yeah.
If the sheriff's department is available to answer this, what details are available on the weapon that was recovered? More importantly, what is that weapon's history?
Great question. Thank you very much, Tim. I appreciate that. So first off, we do have that weapon. I want to say he was a convicted felon, was not legally, could not legally possess a firearm. It is a handgun. And at this point, we believe that it is a ghost gun, or a gun that is made up of various parts. That is one of the areas of the investigation that we're still delving into to try to determine where that gun originated and how it came in his possession. And I know that we have agents from the FBI as well as Homeland Security who are working as we speak to try to get that. But that's the best information I have on this at this point.
Thank you, Sheriff.
You bet. Thank you. No, we go in order. That's the way we do it here. Go ahead. Nothing?
Yeah, Eric Adams from North State Public Radio. I'm wondering how the information about, I believe it was a statement of the International Alliance, how was that recovered?
Yeah. There were writings that we believe he authored, and we were able to obtain those writings. And at this point in the investigation, I'm not prepared to discuss any more about those writings or how they came in it, but those are words that he wrote and that we attribute to him.
Jake Goodrick, Sacramento Bee, and to follow up on the gun questions, are you able to disclose how many shots were fired?
I don't have that information right now. I think I talked about the number of shots or the number of injuries that the children sustained, but I don't have the number of shots that were fired at this point. Okay. Moving over here. Moving along.
Sounds like there was Zach Wood of Fox 40.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
There was an alternative target for Red Bluff Adventist for today.
Correct. That's right. So he had scheduled similarly. He scheduled an appointment like he did with the one here. Called, used that name, scheduled an appointment, and then ended up going to the school here in Oroville. But he also scheduled a similar appointment, and that would have been scheduled for today. But he did what he did yesterday, and so of course never made it down. Moving along.
Natalie Brazan with Adventist Forum. Do we know if he attended Paradise Elementary, Adventist Elementary, or Paradise Adventist Academy?
So that's a very good question. I don't know the answer to that. We can definitely get that information for you. But it would have been when he was much younger. Recognize he's in his 50s now, so it would have been many, many years ago. Yeah. For that matter, do you think they have records?
Yes.
Do they? Fantastic. Well, we're going to let's meet together, follow up, and let's get some information about what that looks like. Okay. Oh, yes.
So, being that he was OR'd from another California judicial system, was he still in possession of that ID that he gained access to the school, or did they take that and confiscate it for evidence against them?
I suspect that was taken as evidence by the San Mateo County or South San Francisco authorities, as they arrested him on that. And I don't, there's no indication that he was required to show any identification during his meeting at the school.
Would that be something that you would consider going forward, if you're having meetings that they show IDs?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of discussions that I'm sure that the school in the debrief and the after action will talk a lot about, what they should do to heighten security. But I'm going to leave that to them and for future discussions.
Well, I'm saying for being that event going forward, for if there was any other events, would you suggest to other schools at the Adventist or any other that if someone called to say, hey, I want to check out your school for my kid, what would you say to those people?
So we could sit and speculate as to whether or not him presenting ID would have resulted in an intervention in his ultimate goal, right? But, and I think it's important for school administrators to certainly know who they are talking to. But I also want, when we engage in security procedures, I want security procedures to be meaningful, right? And if the intent is to engage in an active shooter scenario, presentation of an ID, fictitious or otherwise, isn't necessarily going to prevent that. So I think it's overall part of an overall security approach that each school needs to develop based on their various issues. You're right there. You had your hand up?
Oh, you guys
Oh, did I? Okay, very good. Moving across, yes.
I know you said that he was homeless, but have you been able to track down where he was staying and if there were any other weapons?
So he was, while he was here in Butte County, staying at various motels. We've been able to identify those, and we did recover some luggage that he had in one of those hotels. At this point, we haven't found a location where he left any other weapons. Okay, moving along.
The Uber driver, did he say anything about his demeanor? Was he calm? Was he agitated?
Yeah, I don't, there's nothing from that interview. I wasn't briefed on anything in that interview that gave the Uber driver any cause for concern or caused him to think that this guy was going to go there and launch that attack. Yes, sir.
What does his family life look like? Did he have a wife ever? Does he have a daughter or anything like that?
Yeah, I don't.
Assuming they've been in contact before.
Yeah, he has a sister. We've been in contact with her. I don't have any more information on any other members of his family. It doesn't appear as though he had close connections with a lot of different family members. Moving along. Nothing? In the back of the room? Anybody else? Coming back here.
Hey, Sheriff, Zach with Fox 40 again. In this note that he left for law enforcement, it sounds like he was acting in retaliation to a necessitated response to America's involvement with genocide and oppression of Palestinians, along with attacks toward Yemen. And this is a countermeasure involving child executions. You speak more on that, and is there any other understanding of where this came from?
No. That's what we believe that's what he wrote. That's a motivation that was in his mind. How it was that he conflated what's going on in Palestine and Yemen with the Seventh-day Adventist Church, I can't speculate. I'm not sure that we'll ever know that. I would go back to the fact that it was clear, there's a pretty clear history of mental health issues with this individual, and sometimes people who suffer from that can conflate that. And I'll add, that's not to suggest in any way whatsoever that people with mental health issues are violent or all violent, or, because I don't want to add more stigma to that, but I think that's part of the issue right there. All right, I'm going to come back here. Go ahead.
Eric, radio again. I did want to ask, you said there's a clear history of mental health issues. Obviously, I understand what you mean, but is there anything like on paper, anything on paper that indicates that he has a mental illness?
So I do know that there were some court documents, right? Mr. Ramsey, can you speak to that?
In a sense, on paper, what we had is in 2015, the federal court, the federal probation office, noted that he had severe mental health issues going back to age 16 and going forward. That was also noted in the probation report in 2002. So it bridged those times.
In terms of an actual diagnosis, we don't have that information. Recognize, though, we're only one day out from this. And so rather than waiting to delve deeper into that before getting out here, we wanted to get the information. Go ahead.
Are you in possession of this duffel bag, and was anything significantly found in it?
So we are in possession of certain contents of the duffel bag, not the duffel bag. We're still looking for that. I think the item of significance that we know of at this point is a Glock carrying case. Pistols often come in carrying cases. There was no pistol in it, but it was a Glock carrying case.
Is there something that, is it, you think that it's somewhere around that number?
Well, if anybody has information about it, by all means, we're out there actively looking for it. Someone else had their hand up over here. Yes, ma'am.
Any other resources being offered to the families? I know you guys yesterday were at the Church of Nazareth.
Yeah.
Are you guys going to be offering that again to the families?
So that is a very good question, and I appreciate you asking it because, again, the most important thing in all of this is that we remember and recognize the families. And I know that our district attorney, as well as the FBI, have very robust services for the families. And so what I'd like to do is bring them back up to explain what they are doing to assist with the families. So here's it. Yeah.
We're working closely with the family. Backpacks and everything back to the family members. But we're working very closely with the families, with the two boys that were shot at the hospital. And we're continuing to offer different services, whether it's hotel and lodging, whether it's day-to-day services, whether it's ways of returning items back, ways of assisting the school in any way or form, just helping in any and all kinds of care that we can.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Mr. Ramsey, anything else? Sure. Thank you.
Make a note, and following up on that is that as Sheriff indicated, he and I were down in Sacramento at the regional hospital, and the families were grateful for the efforts of the FBI in finding housing for the parents there and continuing that housing and continuing any sort of care that that family needs. And what's going to be a long process. In terms of the victims, that being the 35 children and staff at the Feather River Adventist School, my office will be working with the state victim compensation board and making sure that any manner of counseling, treatment, and other is afforded to those folks, and working with the Adventist folks and trying to really take a look at people that have really gone through the most horrible of events that you can imagine right in front of them, and children seeing their friends shot in front of them. So that's going to take some time, and it's going to take some effort, and my office, FBI, is prepared to see those victims through this process.
Any other? Yeah. Oh, please. Yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah.
The Adventist Church, we are also currently working with our staff and our families and our teachers, not just at the Feather River School, but at our other schools as well, because we are a close-knit community. And so we are going to be working with the resources that have been provided, and our families and staff members will be getting some support to deal with this trauma.
Yeah. A lot of people want to know online is how can, it was said earlier that there's going to be a fundraiser coming up, and what can people do now to help the kids and their families